Okay, in this video we're going to add and subtract decimals. Sorry. Page 1, these examples. Page 2, these examples. Page 3, these examples. Page 4, these examples. Page 5, these ones. And page 6, these two examples. Okay? So let us start with page 1. And we'll straight away just remember money, adding money together, $2.88 plus $1.05. Hopefully we know that we've got to add the cents and then the tens and then the dollars, right, basically. So you kind of line them up like this, cents, tens and dollars, then you add. Now 8 and 5 is 13, so you put, okay, that's 13 cents. So the 3 part of that 13 goes down here. And the 1 part of the 13 is a 10. Okay, and that of course gets added to this next column here, right? So now 1 and 0 and 8 gives us 9. And so we have 93 cents, and then 2 and 1 is $3. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense, right? And it basically, once again, this is what we have, our units or ones, tenths and hundredths. A cent is 1/100th of a dollar because there's 100 cents in a dollar, right? So we've got ones and tenths and hundredths, right, for fun. Okay. All right. So if we're adding, tens, let's say we have, we can also have, say, a tens column. And let's get our cheat sheet out just so I can show you this once again as usual. So if I'm adding these guys, you can see here, like, if I line up the decimal point, I've got a tens column. Okay, I've got ones, I've got tenths, I've got hundredths, and I've got thousandths, and you just line them up like that, and you add the like terms, basically. So we always start over on this side first of all. Don't start here. So anyway, we've only got one type of thousandth. Okay, which is I'll just leave that there for now, just so we can really see that clearly. So we're adding our thousandths. I just have 1 digit in the thousandth spot, and that's 7, right? So you just put 7 down here. So, but I mean, you're supposed to write this down. So I hope you got this written down. So it's 7 thousandths, right? Press pause and write it down if you haven't got it yet. Hundredths, 4 and 1, 5 hundredths. Okay, so 7 thousandths, 5 hundredths. How many tenths? 3 and 8 is 11, so 11 tenths. So we put 1 there, and the other part, so 11 is 10 and 1, and that 10 tenths you see is a unit, is 1. So we put the 1 over there, put the decimal point down here, and add the ones now. 1 and 3 is 4 and 9 is 13. So put 3 here, and we add a 1 to this column, the tens column, and that makes 3 and 1 is 4, right? So once again, you've got tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, and you need to line them up carefully and add the correct digits together. That is the trick. Okay. So if we had this example here, 7.9 plus 3.48 plus 1.007, can you write this out carefully as an addition, one digit on top of the other? So just write this out carefully. How are you going to write this out? Okay, I'll help you. You've got to go, if you haven't got, so you got to go 7.9, 3.48, 1.007. Okay, and then we add them together. So we're adding thousandths, hundredths, tenths, and ones. We always start with the thousandths. So just 7 thousandths. That's all. All the hundredths is easy too. 8 and 0. That's 8 hundredths, right? Tenths. 9 and 4 is 13, and 0. That's still 13. Carry the 1. Put your decimal point down underneath here. You always write down the decimal point underneath decimal point, right? 1 and 1 is 2, and 3 is 5, and 7 is 12. Okay. So we have 12.387, or just for fun, 12 and 387 thousandths. You might remember that from the last section. Okay, So let's go to page 2. And we've got to add these guys together. So can you line these out correctly or neatly, one on top of the other, and then add them without making a mistake? So one thing, once again, we've just got to write things neatly. Don't make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you're wrong. You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this. Oh, you know what? I'm going to line it all out again as usual. Okay, sorry. So 30. Let's see. 31.0289, and then we have 8.79, and then we have 0.003, and then we add those guys. Okay, so we've got to make sure we line things up neatly, so that we have tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and also this last digit here is a 10,000th. Okay, so we always start at the very left. So look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 digits away from the decimal point. So that this is all in a zone. You know, if you want, just for fun, you can stick zeros in as placeholders on the end of these other numbers. That's fine. In fact, we should probably do that. That would make it nice and easy, I think, right? So we all have 4 digits. Oh, that does look nicer, doesn't it? I think we'll do that from now on, right? So 900, that gives us 9. 80 and 3 is 11. Carry the 1, right? 1 and 9 is 10, and 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 and 7 is 8. Put down the decimal point. 1 and 8 and 0 is 9, and then we have 3. So 39.8219. And just for fun, that is 39, and this is tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000ths over 10,000. 8,219 10,000ths. We'll just write out some of these for fun, just for practice, okay, so we remember. Alright, so write this out carefully. And again, we could plug in zeros where we have spaces, basically. So 4.1, and then we've got 10.03, right? 10.03. So you could put a 0 there, just so you can show that there's nothing to be added to the 3 from this guy. Then we've got 200.007, and there's a 0 here and here, right? So you can rewrite these numbers. This 4.1 is the same thing as 4.100. It's the same thing, right? That might, I don't know if you like doing that or not, but anyway. So 0, 0, and 7, of course, is 7. 0, 3, and 0 is... So go ahead and write down the answer. Have you got it? Press pause if you want to finish it. Press pause if you don't have it yet. 0, 3, 0, that's 3. This is 1. Now, so that's 7,000, 3 hundredths, 1 tenth, 4 units, 1 10, and 200. So 214 and 137 thousandths, right? Can you write this as a mixed number just for fun? 214, and we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, so it's over 1,000. 137 thousandths, right? Okay, so let's have a look at page 3. And we'll just do some subtracting. Okay, so we've got $3.74 subtract $1.39. Okay, so we've got to line up the cents, the tens, and the dollars, or the cents, the dimes, and the dollars, basically, right? So 4 take away 9 isn't going to work. So I've got to borrow from this guy. So this 70 cent here becomes 60 cent, and I'll put a 10 over here to add to that 4 to make 14, right? So now 14, so this is 14. 14 subtract 9 is 5, okay? And now I use 6. 6 subtract 3 is 3, right? And that's all done and dusted, so I can just go 3 minus 1 is 2. So the answer is $2.35, right? So press pause and do this one yourself. Or you can race me, try and do it faster than me, whichever you like. Okay, just try it though, try it by yourself, see if you can get it. So it's $15.34. So we've got the cents, the dimes, the dollars, the tens, I guess you could call this. Anyway, so 14 subtract 5 isn't going to work, so I have to borrow from here. So that 30 cent becomes 20 cent and 1. A dime goes over to here to make 14. So instead of 34, I actually have 20 plus 14. Does that make sense? 20 and 14 is 34, isn't it? So I've split it into the 20. See, this is in the tens column, or the tenths column, the dimes. So 20 cent and 14, right? So 14 subtract 5 is 9. 2 subtract 7 isn't going to work. So I've got to borrow from here. So he's going to become a 4, and I'm going to bring a 10 from here to over here, right? So now 12 subtract 7 is 5. But then the decimal point underneath it. Decimal points always line up underneath each other. 4 subtract 8 isn't going to work. So I've got to borrow from here. That becomes 0 and the 1 comes over. So this is now 14. 0 and 14. So 14 subtract 8 is 6, right? So $6.59. Okay. Okay, so see what happens when you do this. 7.2 subtract 1.38. How are you going to line this guy up? Okay, let's see. 7.2 and then 1.38. Trick is make sure the decimal points are underneath each other, right? We're going to subtract now, right? And once again, yeah, we should really put a 0 in there in that empty space. See that empty space? Let's stick a 0 there, okay? Stick in a 0, right? Okay, so now when we subtract, 0 subtract 8 isn't going to work. Do we have to borrow? Yep. So borrow from the 2, that becomes a 1, and now a 10 comes over here. So this is basically a 10, and you bring a 10 over here. 10 and 10 is 20. So bring a 10 over here. Now this because the 10 and 0 was just 10. So now 10 subtract 8 is 2. And now we try to do 1 subtract 3. That's not going to work. Got to borrow from the 7. It's going to become a 6. And you're going to bring a 1 over here or a 10 over here. 11 subtract 3. 8. Put the decimal point underneath that. 6 subtract 1. 5. Okay? Okay, so by all means press pause and try this guy. 23.04 minus 5.99. Okay, now we'll try it. 23.04 minus 5. Decimal points underneath each other, right? Decimal points underneath each other. Like that. Okay. So we'll try 4 subtract 9. It's not going to work, is it? So you got to borrow from here, but there's nothing to borrow from there. Okay, so go back over to here. Okay, you got to borrow 2. To borrow from here to bring it over to here to make that a 10. Okay, and now this 10. That's going to become a 9, right? Because you got to bring a 1 from here again to come over to here to make this 14, right? So 14 subtract 9 is 5. And then we have 9 subtract 9 is 0, right? Decimal point. 2 subtract 5 isn't going to work, so I've got to borrow from this 2. That becomes a 1 and put a 1 over here. So now we have 12. 12 subtract 5 is 7. And then we just have this 1 here. Okay? So 17.05. And we'll check that. Just going to add the 5.99 back again, see if that works out. 5 and 9, 14, carry the 1. 1 and 9 is 10, carry the 1. 6 and 7 is 13, carry the 1. 1 and 1 is 2, 2304. Yep, so that worked out, right? Okay, so some more practice with that type of thing. What are you going to do with 45 subtract 0.087? And by all means, you can race me and try and do these faster than I can. No problem. Or you can press pause and try them, or whichever. So, but in this one, like, press pause and see if you can figure this one out. At least write it out. Press pause and see. How are you going to write this one out? You're going to... Okay, we're going to go 45 needs to subtract 0.087 because the decimal point for 45 is right here. 45 is the same thing as 45 and no cents. $45 is like 45.00, isn't it? Of course, you could put another 0 over here as well, wouldn't matter. 45 and 0 thousandths, right? Now we're going to subtract. Okay, so we've got to go 0 subtract 7. That's not going to work. So I've got to borrow from here. Well, I can't borrow from there. Got to borrow from here. Can't borrow from there. Got to borrow from here then, right? So that 5 becomes a 4, and one of them comes over to here. That becomes a 10. Okay, but but I have to borrow over to here. So I'll turn that back into a 9 and put 1 over here. But now I still have to borrow for over here, so I'll turn that guy into a 9 and put 1 over here. There we go. And now we can do it. So 10 minus 7 is 3. 9 minus 8 is 1. 9 minus 0 is 9. 4 minus 0 is 4, and then we have 4. Okay. So that seems that seems like it's correct, isn't it? $45 subtract 0.087 cents would be, you know, $44.91 cents and 0.03 of a cent, let's say, right? Okay, so let's try this. 9 minus 0.145. Press pause and see if you can do this by yourself. Okay, now I'll try it slowly so you can keep up, and by all means try and race me. Do it faster than me if you can. So you've got 9, and then this is 0.145 we're subtracting, but I must turn the 9 into 0.000, right? So when I try to subtract 0, subtract 5, that's not going to work, and I can't borrow from here, and I can't borrow from here because that's not going to work. Okay, because that's a 0 anyway. So I've got to start borrowing from here. That becomes an 8, and I bring 1 over here. That becomes a 10. But I've got to borrow over to all the way to here. So I'll turn that into a 9 and put 1 over here. But I need to borrow over to here, so I'll turn that into a 9 and put 1 over here. Right? Put one of those units over here. So now the 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 4 is 5. 9 minus 1 is 8. 8 minus 0 is 8. So $8.855, right? So press pause and try this one. 30.03 minus 3.3. Okay, now I'll try it. So you got 30.03, and then you got 3.3, and we're subtracting. And you know what? I'm going to put a 0 here for a placeholder, right? So 3 minus 0 just gives 3. 0 minus 3 isn't going to work. This 0 minus 3 isn't going to work, so I've got to cross this off, turn them into a 2, take one of those units over here, so this is 10. But I still have to borrow over to here, so I'm going to turn that guy into a 9, take one of these units and put it here, right? So 10 minus 3, 7. Decimal point goes down here. 9 minus 3, 6. 2 minus nothing, 2. 2673, right? So press pause again if you like and try this one yourself. See what you come up with. then I'll go over it with you. But I mean, it's most important that you have to try these, because otherwise it's just, you know, worry that you can't do the homework. Well, you need to try this stuff on the video where you actually have a chance to catch your mistakes and learn. So please, you know, try this yourself. Press pause and try it, then I'll do it slowly, okay? Okay, so I'm going to do it slowly now, and I hope you've tried it already. 1 minus 4 isn't going to work. I've got to borrow from here. Turn that into a 2. This becomes 11. So 11 minus 4 is 7. Okay. So 2 minus 8 isn't going to work. Got to borrow from here. That becomes a 1. Bring another 1 over here. Right. 12 minus 8 is 4. Right. Now 1 minus 6 isn't going to work. Got to borrow from here. That becomes a 4. Got to bring a 1 over here. 11 minus 6 is 5. Decimal points underneath each other, like that. 4 minus 6 isn't going to work. Got to borrow from this 4, it becomes a 3, right? 3, and the 1 comes over here to make that 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. 3 minus 7 isn't going to work. Got to borrow from the 5, that becomes a 4, and a 1 comes over here. A 10 comes over here for this unit, so 13 minus 7 is 6, right? And 4 minus 1 is 3. Okay, so I'm just quickly going to check that, and you can always check your answers, especially on the test if you need to. Just add that back up again and see if it works out. Just going to quickly add that together, see if it works out. Let's see, 7 and 4 is 13, carry the 1. 9 and that's 13, carry the 1. And then we have 12, carry the 1. Decimal point down here. 15, carry the 1. 14, carry 1. 5. So 5, 4, 5. Oh, my mistake. 7 and 4 was 11. Silly me. 7 and 4 is 11. Carry the 1. Right? There we go. Not 13. So yeah, 545.231. 545.231. Yep. Okay, so what about these guys? What are we going to do with this? Let's start with this example here. We've got these in parentheses and then plus 3.4, right? So if we remember PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. It's saying we want to do parentheses first, right? So we're going to start with this. I guess I'll just do it to one side. 8.3 minus 1.2. So we'll just calculate that. 3 minus 2 is 1. 8 minus 1 is 7. Isn't it? So this just becomes 7.1 plus 3.4. So now I just got to calculate this, right? Add 3.4. 1 and 4 is 5. And that's 10. So the answer is 10.5. Now can you calculate this one? Press pause and try this one. What do you think you need to do first on that? Parentheses again? Yep. So let's do that to one side. 3.2 minus 1.5. 2 minus 5 is not going to happen. Cross that off, carry 1 over. 12 minus 5 is 7. Decimal point goes down here. 2 minus 1 is 1. So this becomes 1.7. So I have 7.8 minus 1.7, right? So just calculate that and then I've got it, right? 7.8 minus 1.7. 8 minus 7 is 1. 7 minus 1 is 6. So 6.1. But the trick on these was to make sure you do what's in the parentheses first and then do the rest, right? Because of the order of operations PEMDAS, right? Okay, can you do this one? Subtract 4 from the sum of 9.3 and that 0.182. By all means, press pause and see if you can do it. There's no point just watching me. You've gotta try and do it. Imagine this is your homework and just try and do it, and you know, make that mistake so that you can then catch your mistake and watch me doing it, and you know, make sure you catch your mistakes right now when you have a chance to learn this. Okay, subtract 4 from the sum of this and this, right? So the sum, what does sum mean? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Sum means add. It says subtract 4 from the sum of this. Well, to my mind, that means we've got to first get this sum and then subtract 4. Now, the easiest way to do it would be just go 9.3 plus 0.182, get the sum, and then subtract 4 afterwards, right? Just for fun, I'm going to write out what this would look like. You would get the sum of 9.3 plus 0.182, just because in later math classes you'll have to do this. This is the sum. And you'll put that in parentheses because you want to do that first. Okay. Then you're going to subtract 4 from that sum. And so you need to write it out like that. So that's just for fun. But the bottom line is we have to add these together first anyway, no matter what. And I think it's kind of nice to stick zeros where we have kind of empty spaces, right? For the hundredths and the thousandths here. So 0 and 2 is 2, 0 and 8 is 8, 3 and 1 is 4, 9 and 0 is 9. So that's the sum of 9.3 and 0.182, and then we have to subtract 4 from that. How are we going to do that? Subtract 4, right? Or just for fun, 4.000. How about that? Okay. 2 minus 0 is 2, 8 minus 0 is 8, 4 minus 0 is 4, 9 minus 4 is 5. So 5.482, right? Now, can you do this one? What number is added to 0.045 to obtain 3.086? Let me ask you this. What number is added to 3 to obtain 10? What number is added to 3 to obtain 10? Different question. How would you figure this one out? What number is added to 3 to obtain 10? And how did you get that? You said 7, right? 7 is added to 3, can be added to 3 to get 10. How can you calculate 7 if you're given these two numbers? To calculate 7 given these two numbers, you would do this. Wouldn't you subtract? What would you subtract? Wouldn't you go 10, subtract 3? The answer is 7, right? So if the question was what number is added to 3 to obtain 10, I just go 10 minus 3. But if I'm asked what number is added to this to obtain this, then I just go this number minus that number, right? Does that make sense? So subtract that and then you got the answer. Just like the 10 and 3, right? So 6 minus 5 is 1, 8 minus 4 is 4, 0 minus 0 is 0, 3 minus 0 is 3, and that's the answer there, right?